Hello, and welcome to my series on how to talk about AI. So recently I got a question from a client that made me realize that a lot of people have a misconception about how AI learns. The reason why I put in air quotes is that most AI models don't actually learn. So now some of you might be a little surprised by my statement. After all, you experience YouTube suggestions. You have probably used various mobile apps like TikTok, and you have noticed it learning and adapting to your behavior. So let's clear this up. Let's go back to my first diagram. So when I say the model does not learn, I specifically mean that this model does not change while in production. So you might ask, if the model is not changing, how is it giving me updated recommendations? Well, the answer is that the input has changed. Let's walk through an example. All right, so here's an example. Say you bought items A and B. That's the input. So the model takes that input and outputs items C and D as recommendations. Then, when you buy C, the input is A, B, and C, and it outputs, let's say, E and F. And this gives the illusion that the model remembers your past purchases, but it does not, right? It gives the illusion that it has learned your past behaviors, but it actually knows nothing about you. Let's look at another example. So this one, let's say it recommends songs. So the input is songs, song title, and then whether or not you gave it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And the output is a song recommendation. So if you look at my example, do you see how this gives the illusion that the model is learning what you thumbs up and what you thumbs down, right? Because if you look at this, all it's saying is, or all the information it's taking in is just some history of the songs that you have listened to and the thumbs up and thumbs down that you have given it, and then it just predicts some more songs. And so, it might be a little bit different. It might, maybe only take the past 3 songs or the past 3 months of songs. But regardless, that's what it does. It took your actions as one of its inputs. Now, what about this model? The input is just the songs that you've listened to. No thumbs up, no thumbs down. But in the UI, maybe there's a couple of buttons on the side, and you can click like or you click skip and things like that, right? But do you see that with this model, no matter how many times you click on that heart, it's not actually going to impact the model, right? Because if you look, the model doesn't actually take as input these 2 buttons. It doesn't take as input. It doesn't take into account what the user actually is clicking on. And so, that's very key. And this is why it's very important to think about what is those inputs and outputs. And go back to my original video. All this, I'm really stressing the importance of good communication, right? Why did I say that was the most important thing, or the first thing you should talk about? Is that when you refer to your models by the inputs and outputs, or in some convention like that, it helps unveil, this or illusion that the AI models are actually learning, right? So when you are very explicit with what is that input, it should be very clear to everybody else, that those inputs can change or not change, and therefore it will give that illusion of learning or it will not. But it's very important to be very clear about that. Okay, so to summarize, most AI models don't learn, at least not in the way that people think they do. They just give the illusion that they learn. But don't confuse training with learning, right? This training that I've outlined before, right? This training happens before production. And yes, it can train for a while, and most likely the engineers are training a new model while this one is in production. But the one in production is not continuously learning. And that's very key. All right, so some takeaways. All right, so if you are not an AI practitioner, I recommend that you ask your engineering team, what are the inputs and outputs for a given model? Are you using the first model or are you using the second model? And because just because you see something in the UI doesn't mean the model is actually using that as an input. It could be used for something else. On the engineering side, you know, this is not too technical to explain, right? I think a lot of people are worried about, oh, how do I explain the complexity of a deep neural network? And it's like, no, you don't have to explain that. Start with this. Because, if you can explain this, you can avoid like a possible scenario where sales and marketing are selling something that doesn't exist. Because if you're in engineering, you don't want to be put in a situation where sales sold something and now the pressure is going to be on you to make it happen. I hope that clears it up. Some confusion about how AI models learn, because they really don't. And I hope that when you guys are talking about your AI models, that you do take some of these things into consideration, because I think how you talk about it really does impact the rest of the organization and then therefore your clients and everybody else. Thanks, that's it. Please let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Bye guys.